Hello, adventurer. It's good to see you. You have made it to the morning grind.
Welcome, welcome.
It's the live stream at the beginning of the Geekverse, where we talk about all types of topics in geekdom, gaming, and fantasy, with an emphasis on being constructive and creating the things that we want to exist in the world.
It's all on the grind, Sizemore. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
That's exactly right. There are a lot of adventures to be had today. Dungeons to explore and monsters to slay, and who knows what a random encounter might send our way. That's why we have to prepare, so settle in now for the morning grind with your favorite beverage in hand.
Tea? Or maybe something a little stronger. I've got a few bottles of the old Wynyard left.
Whatever you want. Pull up a chair.
Dude.
If you're feeling fancy, how about a cappuccino? Or a frappuccino? Or how about an espresso?
Just tea, thank you.
Sounds good to me, Gandalf. Whatever you want. I'm just glad you're here.
Everyone is welcome. You can just watch if you want. You don't have to worship anything you don't want to worship.
Thank you, Mike. But be forewarned.
Sometimes we get really strange characters around here.
Wait, what's that you say? Why can't you come and be a part of the stream?
My wife would disown me.
Oh no, I bet she'll be fine with it. Come on in.
Am I scared for my safety? No.
What are we supposed to do?
Everybody do the secret handshake.
Secret cultist handshake.
Oh, now do wizards who love each other.
This, my friend, is a science.
I still don't have gills, but it's fine.
It's all on the grind, son. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
Dude, this would be a sick place to bring the band.
Indeed it would be, Dave. It really would. I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Oh, look, here's someone new.
Is this the cultist meetup?
Yes it is.
Come to hang out? Please accept me. I have nothing else.
Okay, we accept you. Everyone's welcome here.
Brought some snacks.
Well, that makes things even better.
You want some coffee? I don't drink coffee. You sure?
It's cultist coffee.
What makes it cultist coffee? I'm a cultist and I'm drinking it. Oh. Then I'll have some.
What exactly is going on here?
I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. It's so great to have you. Oh, and look, here comes another stranger.
Can we help you?
Yes, fellow cultists. I could really use some food.
Oh yeah? Welcome. We have donuts.
Oh, it's me. I'm glad I'm here. I'm sure you have a few questions for me, though.
What's your name? Who do you work for? What god do you worship?
Great questions, Rob.
I'm Steve King, and I worship Nyarlathotep.
No, not really. I'm just Heath, and I won't be worshiping anything this morning. But I will be your host. Welcome to the office. We're going to have a great time. I've got my coffee ready, because now it's time for the morning grind.
If you could become a fish, that would be amazing. Then I could command you with my mental fish powers.
Hey, I am here. Welcome. It's good to see everybody. Yes, I meant to get started at 9 o'clock this morning, and, I was at the winery late last night, and then I got working last night when I got home, because there were things I could do. I'm going to share what I was working on last night, and then all of a sudden I got to bed like after midnight, and then I woke up and I asked Siri, I was like, what time is it? She was like 9:07. I was like, oh. So, all right, so here we are now. So let's see, who we got today? We'll be working on the RPG, and we're getting closer and closer. Was working on it a lot since last week. We didn't get to meet on Wednesday because I was playing Hero Quest with my nephews, and we had a great time doing that. But that means it's been a while, and there's been a lot of progress made. So let's see. Jason is here. Good morning, Jason. Good morning. Let's see. Tomocrat is here. Good morning. Lynn is here. Good morning. Robert, good morning. And BGD, good to see you. Zero the Blade may be here, but then go skydiving. So, all right. Enjoy. Mike, good morning. Well, I guess it depends on what time zone you're in. It was 9:30 here. Hey, Charlie. Good morning, everybody. All right, so let's see. The thing that I got working on, I started putting together some shorts. I put together in the Discord server for the cultists on the cultist channel. I've been playing with some shorts because get the show out, and so I was playing around getting some shorts together, and I had just done one. What I was trying to do was get the Discord server link here. Let's see. Let me just do that. There we go. Ravenkeep Discord server. I've been trying when I'm working to be putting some material in the Discord server. Yeah, I'm in Central Time. About what was going on. So I worked with that, but I decided, you know what, I should do a complete re-edit of the trailer in kind of short format. Oh. Did that link go through? I guess it did. Okay. And so last night I was working on it. It took a lot longer than I was expecting. It took a lot longer than I was expecting it to. But here is the Cultist trailer re-edited for the vertical format. So I'm going to put it out in a couple places. I put together a Cultists Instagram page that just has one reel posted on it right now. I've got the Cultist Facebook page. We rebranded the Cultists on its own YouTube channel. So I thought, hey, you know what? Maybe I could look at re-editing some of these things as reels. I have no idea how to create a TikTok account, apparently. Like, there's one for Table Talk, but I'm like, okay, I need some other branded accounts. Like, I need one for the Cultists. And I can't figure out how to do that. So we'll just see. But this is what I put together.
You think the cult of the Yellow King is...
Now, it doesn't have any captions on it right now. So other than at the very beginning. So I got to think about that. I guess how that goes.
You think the cult of the Yellow King is here?
Let's sign up for this. You've opened the door to Carcosa.
Our son, Mike, has gotten involved in some...
I think it looked
Antarte.
It's causing a lot of tension in the family.
If you really cared about my future, then you let me sacrifice my little sister. How's the cult of Dagon going?
It's the esoteric order of Dagon.
By the power of Father Dagon!
Just want him to be normal. I want him to have normal friends.
Being cultist around here is really free form, casual, low pressure.
This is the plan. Summoning Cthulhu?
We had Cthulhu on our side. The cult of the Yellow King wouldn't stand a chance.
Ritual music.
So I like that. I think that's pretty cool. So I got to figure out if I want the captions on there. I think they need to be like smaller, down on one corner or something like that. But I got to that point at about midnight last night. So I don't know. We'll see if anybody wants to watch it. But I do like those kinds of things if they can be made, because that can go out as a YouTube short, that can go out on a Facebook reel, that can go out on an Instagram reel. It could go out as a TikTok if I could figure out how to make a new account just for the Cultists or something like that. You and me both, James. You and me both, James. I'm feeling I'm feeling kind of brutal this morning. It's brutal this morning. But yes, please, wherever you are, of course, we are streaming on multiple channels right here because this is a cultist-related stream. So we're going on the Cultist channel. I shared it to the Cultist. There's a Cultist Facebook group. I wish the Facebook groups, I did a lot of building a Facebook group when we initially released the Cultist, but I don't think anybody sees anything that I post over there. So we are streaming out on Facebook. We're streaming on the Cultist for Facebook. We're streaming out on the YouTube channels. So wherever you are, please do hit the like button. All right. So I guess I should give out a couple of other links. Because, okay, look. Okay, we've got 8 people following the Cultist project right now, and it says it won't put the link up, it won't put the number up until at least 10 people are following it. So last time we did get this live, so it looks like we have 8 people following it right now, and of course we're gonna everything is taking longer than I was expecting. Here is the Kickstarter link. Kickstarter, notify me. Do you think we could get it to 10 this morning? If you hit the Kickstarter notify me link page, then you will know when this Kickstarter goes live. And we still have the dice giveaway, and we've got a bunch of other stuff as well. I am still really trying to get the beta release material for this project out before done before I really start promoting it. Thank you, Mike. Mike says I'm following. Thank you, Mike. And I know that I need to post that link in other places. So I have not gone full blitz on promotion yet because I want to be sure that at least the beta playtest material packet needs to be completely done. Then we'll go in and we will take a look at how to get the word out even more, which will include, I think, those shorts, I believe. But anyway, and Brianna and I are very close to having the page ready. I've also got to reach out to people about printing the shirts and finding out how much they cost and things like this. But at the moment, any moment that I've had to sit down and work on something, I've been working on the actual text of this RPG, because that's like the critical path to go through, that I have to get this RPG finished so that we can do something with it. So, and it's grown in scope, like all of my projects do. All right. So that's where we are. I'm going to work with Brianna again this Wednesday. There is no time, though. There is no time. Okay, so our goal here. Oh, hi, Ant. Welcome. Oh, look. Ant is in the... I don't think I've seen Ant before in the chat. And so this is, I believe, Ant's first time. So let's do a sip to Ant. Ant, thank you for being here this morning. Yep, first things first. It's like, okay, I've only got so much time, so I have to hammer on one thing. Because one thing I don't want to have happen, I don't want to I don't want to start promoting things heavily and things like that, and then not have the game in a playable state or anything like that. There's a lot that I want to do as far as the re-release of this the whole series and promoting this. Doing it right this time, I mean, we'll see how it goes. Who knows? But there's a lot of things I'm like, man, I didn't do this right the first time it was released. So I'm trying to do it right this time. And especially with limited time, that when I'm ready to do this, then I want to be all on the promotion, especially if we've got this list of people to contact to potentially be on some other live streams and things like that, about 30, 30 list, a list of 30 people. Obviously they're not all going to, talk about the cultists and what we're doing, but some of them might, and I want to be available. So I'm like, I want to have the project done. And so when it comes time for that, okay, then I could be on other live streams and things like that. And all that. So let's breathe and sip. Let's breathe and sip right here. Let's do a breathe and sip, and then we will get into our RPG design here this morning. Man, I feel so flustered this morning. All right. If you're new here, this is the mental health portion of the show. We're going to take 2 deep breaths in through the nose and then out through the mouth. Complete inhales, complete exhales, deep inhales, complete exhales. I always say that wrong. And then take a sip of your favorite beverage this morning. So here we go. I have got a Diet Mountain Dew, or Mountain Dew Zero this morning. I need it. I need some caffeine this morning. And it's too hot for coffee where I am. All right, let's breathe and sip. Here we go. And sip. Okay, I needed that. All right, feeling better this morning. All right, feeling better already. Breathe and sip is worth it. If you're not doing it with us, you should be. All right, let's go. We are moving along here, and we're getting. I keep going. This is a never-ending thing. I'm like, oh, it's almost done. We're getting close. We're getting close. We're almost done. And I think we are. I have been going through, okay, getting started, introduction. All right, that's done. Game overview, that's done. I think we're in good shape there. What you need to play, we're in good shape there. Oh, by the way, last Wednesday, Brianna was working on the players pack. I bet I don't have that file. Otherwise, I would show it off. But you know how you've got to have some of these, some meta currencies, some tokens for courage, or who is the lead and who has sway. Well, I was trying to put together like a player's pack for this. And originally I was thinking, well, we can go send those off to be custom molded. But then that would have to come from overseas because nobody here in the US does that. So I'd have to go to China for manufacturing. And for this Kickstarter, I don't want to do that. For this project, I want this to be only material that is produced locally, as in within the US. That way I can get them done and I can ship them out. So I can't do anything that requires custom molding. But I can do some like laser cut punch boards and things like that. So I was looking at places like the Game Crafter, that do print on demand kinds of things. And so I assigned Brianna to create courage tokens and create the sway tokens and things like that. So she came up with some really great looking tokens using the vector art style that's been appearing on the Cultists branding, like with the header and things like that. So she made up those files. I didn't get to upload them to get a price on them, but she made the files because I was trying to get all of the different products done. So she did a great job with that, of course. So we were looking at how to get those printed. So that was another thing that went on last week. So what do you need to play? I thought of that because what do you need to play? Well, we want the little players pack. I think it'd be fun to have a players pack. So, and of course, these will be more colorful than the molded plastic because there's something that can be printed. So they might be nice. What you need to play? Character sheet explained. Now that once a character sheet is done, we will put that in here. How to play. We've been fighting with this section quite a bit. So we've got a how to play section. We've got story, the structure of story and scene. That all checks out. Beginning the game. Magic and the Elder Gods. That's an important section we have been over and done. The lead. Okay, I think I was working on this section because I wanted to play up the part of the lead here. So I do have the lead because I realized that we put a lot of emphasis on the player who has sway, and so forth. But really being the lead in the scene should also be a big deal. And so I wanted to be sure that that was covered as well. So the lead. Players should collectively select a character to be the lead in the initial scene. The player of the lead the player of the lead character rolls to determine the scene that will be played. The lead character will be central to that scene with much of the action focused on him or her. The player of the lead character should take a physical token, if one is available, to indicate that his or her character is the lead for the scene. This helps identify the lead character for everyone at the table. When the lead character does not have sway, he or she has priority in making sway checks in a scene. Okay, so sway and the lead are different. Now, I know that James was talking about this. Like, should they be the same or should they be different? So this is talking about the lead. If some other character has sway, you don't automatically get sway if you're the lead. You have priority in making sway checks to take sway from someone else. When a scene concludes, the player of that scene's lead selects a new lead for the subsequent scene. So the lead's going to pass around. The chosen player's character becomes the primary focus for the new scene, with the majority of the action centered on him or her. The chosen character might be one that was harmed or otherwise disgraced in the previous scene, allowing the character to potentially get some retribution on those who wronged him or her. The previous lead transitions to the role of scene moderator for the next scene, see below. The lead passes around the table in this way until everyone has had a turn. Once every player has been the lead, a round is complete. The previous lead chooses a new lead, and play continues with a new round. Everyone does not need to get an equal number of turns as the lead during the game. As long as everyone has had a turn, allow the game to conclude when the story naturally comes to an end. Okay, so that's the lead information. I think it was determining a scene that I was actually writing in. Establishing the scene moderator. We got rules for having a game master and not having a game master. And I do really want to play this on Dinner and a Board Game. I was thinking about that. That's part of the when we start marketing and going out. I really would like to play this on Dinner and a Board Game. It would be so much fun to have at least some of the actors and actresses from the Cultists back. I've got to shoot dinner segments. They might be wine tastings. They might be wine tastings up at the winery. I wonder if I could get Megan to come down to the winery, like maybe on a Sunday evening, and shoot some like wine tastings or something like that. Because we need some dinner segments because the show's got to have something to do with dinner. So wine tastings, that works too. It doesn't always have to be cooking a full meal. That might let us get some done, and then invite some of the cultists to do this live. The actors and actresses for the cultists to perhaps do some live shows. I like it. I like the live shows on Dinner and a Board Game, either in advance of the Kickstarter or while the Kickstarter is live or something like that. So that's going to take a lot of planning too. That's why I'm like one thing at a time, like BGD was saying. Establishing the scene, moderator, determining the scene. Okay, so here, I think this is actually where I was. So this comes off of the lead. The lead is in charge of, it's determining the scene. Okay, so the lead is in charge of setting the scene to be played. The lead has the opportunity to design the scene in such a way that it highlights his or her character's abilities, especially. Let's see. Okay, so so obviously this is to set them up, especially to set them up to make sway checks. Okay, so the lead is in charge of setting the scene to be played. I think this is where I added some material. The lead has the opportunity to design the scene in such a way that it highlights his or her character's abilities, especially to set them up to make sway checks. To do this, the lead rolls 2 6-sided dice and sums them. The lead then consults the beat sheet scene list to determine the scene to be played. If a die roll repeats during the game, the lead may choose to either move up or down 1 number to the next unplayed scene. Alternatively, the lead may make up an entirely original scene. The beat sheets provide a structure to the progression of the scenes, but the scene recommendations are general enough to provide plenty of opportunities for the lead to customize it to their character's strengths. The lead specifies where the scene takes place, and any non-player characters, any important props or set dressings. Where the lead specifies where the scene takes place, and any non-player characters, important props, or set dressings. The lead specifies where the scene takes place, as well as any non-player characters, important props, or set dressings that might be present when the scene, let's say, begins. All right, so I didn't quite finish. Don't think for too long about these. Go with what comes into your head. Let's say be spontaneous and go with your instincts. So the lead player gets to do that. They kind of get to take it and go with your instincts. Be spontaneous, go with your instincts, and start the scene. There we go. Beat sheets provide a structure to the progression of the scenes, but the scene recommendations are general enough to provide plenty of opportunities for the lead to customize it to their character's strengths. The lead specifies where the scene takes place, as well as any non-player characters, important props, or set dressings that might be present when the scene begins. Don't think for too long about these. Don't think for too long. Why don't we just say don't think for too long? Be spontaneous, go with your instincts, and get the scene started. And then I wanted to put an example of that here, the example of a lead organizing this scene with the beat sheet. But then I was like, oh, but I can't write this example yet because I was trying to just go from the beginning of this book down to the end of this book and get it done. But I realized I can't do that because if I'm going to write an example here, I have got to have a beat sheet. And so I've spent a lot of time working on the beat sheets. So, some of them I put in the Discord server. Or one of them I think I put in the Discord server. But that's the lead. So that section isn't completely finished because I got to put an example in it, and I might want to add some more material. Like the lead has control of establishing a lot of things. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? I hope it does. Because you could be scheming. If you're the lead, you could be scheming to take sway from the sway holder. Spells and spell casting. We spent a considerable amount of time writing out the way spells and spell casting works. So we've done that. Let's see. Lynn says, for your example, you should roll a die and then show how a beat sheet entry can be fleshed out. Exactly. That's exactly what I was planning on doing. showing how the lead character takes what's on the beat sheet and fleshes it out. That's exactly right. Adjudicating actions. Meta currencies. Okay, courage. We were working on this a lot last time. Checks. I think we are done here. In fact, let's review this because I think that we got to the end of this last time, and then I think I polished it up since then. So this is the way that checks ended up. Let's make sure that the now see, but here again, I might need some more examples. Yes, okay, I have not written an example. I didn't write an example for the critic and the sway skill because I hadn't gotten back to doing that, to going over the narrative roles and making sure that each one of these is exactly the way we want them, especially with regard to how the troubles are written. I hadn't gotten to that. So it looks like it would be nice if the only thing that was left in the front of the book were some examples that are based on things that are at the end of the book. So the example of the critic in sway skills is not done yet. But let's see. Okay, so checks. This is how we ended up. Let's confirm. It would be. Let's see if I can actually say that everything is done except for these examples. So checks. Most of the time when a player describes the action his or her character takes, that action is automatically successful. Other players react to it and the story moves forward. However, there are two circumstances where players must roll dice, called making a check, to determine the success or failure of an action. Oh, you know what I wanted to do? I was behind this morning. Let's say people who are coming in, because people might be new here. I was thinking about this the other day. Welcome. We are designing a role-playing game. Let's put a banner on this stream so that people know we're designing a role-playing game for the Cultists. That we want to, this is going to, we want to bring this game to Kickstarter soon. Come on in and join us for the development section. We have had some development of the game. Okay, that way if somebody comes in, they know what we are doing. Hey, Doc. Welcome. Good to see you. Good to have you here. Welcome to everybody who is here. So most of the time when a player describes the action his or her character takes, that action is automatically successful. When other players react to it and the story moves forward. However, there are two circumstances where players must roll dice, called making a check, to determine the success or failure of an action. A player must make a check whenever 1, their character attempts to gain sway with their fellow cultists by using one of their sway skills, or 2, when they attempt a task involving one of their troubles. A character may only attempt 1 check per scene, and only then if it makes sense within the structure of the story being told. So we're trying to make the checks matter. You get 1 per scene. Otherwise, you're working within the improv environment. For example, the lackey has the sway skill, impress someone with your attention to detail and focus. But if that skill is not relevant to the scene, it cannot be used. Players are free to argue their case if they see something, if they see some particular way the skill may indeed be relevant, but players should mutually agree as to when the skills can be used and checks should be made. However, the game will be more fun if there is a bias for action and characters are frequently allowed to at least try what they want to do. To make a check, roll a single 6-sided die and see if it meets or exceeds the difficulty, DC. DCs for trouble checks are always 6. DCs for sway skill checks are always 5. If the die equals or exceeds the DCs, the action is successful. The action is successful. Players may improve. Players may improve their character's chances of success in 2 ways. For every point of courage spent, the player may roll an additional die. They may spend as many points of courage as their character has in his or her reserve. The player may roll sway checks. The player with sway rolls an additional die on any trouble check they make. When multiple dice are rolled on a check, at least 1 die must equal or exceed the DC of the check for the action to be successful. Anytime a check is failed, you must introduce a headache into the game. Okay. Okay, so our examples are still there because we talked a lot last time about this example with Dave, and that this example potentially takes him out of the scene, but only potentially because there are other ways to handle that. You could role play him alone. Maybe he does arrive, but he rushes in late as at a critical moment. I think there are a lot of different ways to handle that. It's a very clear kind of example here about when to roll this. And we thought that this was not a systematic problem, that if you have some kind of trouble, you're being taken out of the scene, or it's necessary that you're out of the scene. I believe that was the case. So trouble checks. Trouble checks are made when a character wants to act against part of their nature that ordinarily makes life difficult for them. Trouble checks should only be made when there are clear stakes for the character regarding whether or not they will overcome their trouble. If there be no significant consequences for giving into the trouble, then no trouble check should be rolled. I'll skip over the example then. If you succeed on a trouble check, your character acts counter to that part of their nature, successfully accomplishes the action in spite of the fact that no one expected to, and the character gains 2 courage points. I think we actually, come to think of it, we should also say that if you succeed a trouble check, because this is written at the concluding the game, that if you succeed a trouble check, then it guarantees that the story is going to end well for you. Maybe we ought to even say that early. Because your goal, like one of the things you should be doing, like this isn't about like how do you win the game. I don't want to couch it like that. How do you win this game? Well, make sure you're making trouble checks. But if you want to be sure that the game ends well for you, then you need to pass a trouble check. Let's see. Let's put that up here. Trouble checks. Succeeding at a trouble check anytime during the game is one way to ensure that the story ends well for your character. Players should craft a positive ending or a positive should craft a storyline that ends well. We say that again here. That ends on a positive note. For any character who passed a trouble check during the game. Therefore, players may want to create situations where their character must confront situations. They want to craft situations where their character must confront confront the troubling aspects of their lives in order to overcome them. Players will frequently. Therefore, players may want to create situations where their character must confront the troubling aspects of their lives in order to overcome them. Let's see. Oh, okay. Doc Flamingo, can you explain the trouble checks a bit? I'm dubious about mechanics dictating character behavior. Okay, so yes. Okay, so we're concerned about trouble checks dictating character behavior. It's not the check that's dictating character behavior. It's more like the troubles, because you choose what your troubles are when you create your character. So in some ways, these are a lot like is it called troubles or your problem area when you're creating a fate character? That's like, what is it that always gets you into trouble? So like the Elder Goth chooses 3 troubles: effectively use technology, blend into the background, appear non-threatening to people in the mundane world, or acknowledge your weakness and vulnerability. So those are things that ordinarily you have trouble with. Like the Elder Goth has trouble effectively using technology because they are just outside of that. So from the role-playing perspective, that's what needs to be happening in the story. But if we're now in a situation where the Elder Goth must effectively use technology or wants to, to overcome that hurdle or blend into the background. Okay, I'm going to have to blend into the background and look like a mundane person or something like that. That's difficult for them. So if they want to do that, they're going to have to pass a check. And then you've got the rules for the check about rolling a DC 6 and your courage points and things like that. So these are things that make things difficult for you. And I want to be clear on that when we're writing out these troubles here, because I know that when we're reviewing these troubles in a few minutes, because I know that's been an issue that has come up, that like, what exactly these troubles mean? Because these troubles do 2 things, which I do write later in here. The troubles do 2 things. One, tell you what the standard situation is with your character that causes them difficulty. And if you want to act counter to that, you're going to have to pass a check. So I'm wondering, I was wondering, do I need to, be more explicit here? Your troubles are, you're baffled by modern technology. Roll in order to effectively use it. Something like that. Does that need to be how it needs to be expressed? Lynn says, I'm thinking that a positive note may not always be possible to achieve without feeling forced. It should be a goal, but not a dictum. Okay, virtues. Man, it's been a while. We did look at Pendragon. It's been a while since we've looked at Pendragon on this show. Why don't I say try? Because Lynn says, I'm thinking that a positive note may not always be possible to achieve without feeling forced. Yeah. Should we say try? You think ensure is too strong? Well, I could weaken it here by saying the player should try to craft a storyline that ends on a positive note for any character who passes a trouble check during the game. Therefore, players may want to create situations where their characters must confront the troubling aspects of their lives in order to overcome them. Probably. Dedicating several saved courage points. To ensure that dedicating several saved courage points to the check. So there we go. And remember, I mean, you can only make one check during a scene. So it'll be, the checks aren't, you're not just, making a check to jump over a pit or something like that. You're only making checks when you are attempting to gain sway over your fellow cultists, or when you're trying to overcome one of your troubles. So let's try that again. I think I like having that there because that tells you why this is significant in the game. So trouble checks are made when a character wants to act against part of their nature that ordinarily makes life difficult for them. Succeeding at a trouble check anytime during the game is one way to ensure the story ends well for your character. Players should try to craft a storyline that ends on a positive note for any character who passed a trouble check during the game. Should we say acceptable, a positive, or acceptable note? Therefore, players may want to create situations where their character must confront the troubling aspects of their lives in order to overcome it. Overcome them, must confront that. Yeah, this should be plural. Confront them. Probably dedicating several saved courage points to the check. Does this just sound terrible? Maybe it's just me this morning. Hey, Sable, good morning. Sometimes a cliffhanger or an escalation is better than a warm, fuzzy success. Well, do I need what's a better word for that that I've got here? An acceptable way for the character. Players should try to craft I do want to say C, concluding the story. PYYY. Therefore, players may want to put their characters. I mean, I see what you're getting at, Lynn. I'm struggling with the phraseology here. Suitable. Yeah, suitable. I'm trying to come up with also like acceptable to the player. I mean, it's probably. I mean, if you're, but the issue there is that if you end down, I mean, this being an improv style game, it's also a situation where if it ends badly for your character, it also probably is acceptable to the player. Okay, well, I didn't pass a trouble check, and I don't have sway, so it's going to end, shall I say, badly for your character, but not in a way that's not like acceptable to you in some sense, if that also makes sense. Let's see. Yeah, suitable doesn't commit you to good or bad, just that it fits the situation. Well, because even the poor choice, even if you don't do that, you should still end in a suitable way, one that fits the situation. The story ends well for your character. Should storyline by having more control. I have no idea how long this book's. We're trying to do 48 pages here. Brianna's probably going to kill me when she sees this layout or sees this text to go to layout. See, I don't know if I necessarily like that, because you still have control over how things end up for your character, even if they're going to end poorly. Maybe I'm overthinking this. Because it's not like we're taking agency away from the other players with how the story is going to conclude for them, even if they're going to end up on a down note. So what do I have here? Trouble checks are made when a character wants to act against part of their nature that ordinarily makes life difficult for them. Succeeding at a trouble check during the game is one way to ensure the story ends well for your character. Players should try to craft a storyline that ends on a positive note for any character who passed a trouble check during the game. There's also like I guess this is kind of like the moral element of this. Confront your demons and things go well for you, right? That's the message. Therefore, players may want to put their characters in situations where they must confront the troubling aspects of their lives in order to overcome them. And hopefully overcome them. Probably dedicating several saved courage points to the check. Trouble checks are made when a character wants to act against part of their nature that ordinarily makes life difficult for them. Succeeding at a trouble check during the game is one way to ensure the story ends well for your character. Players should try to craft a storyline that ends on a positive note for any character who passed a trouble check during the game. Therefore, players may want to put their characters in situations where they must confront the troubling aspects of their lives and hopefully overcome them, probably dedicating several saved courage points to the check. Trouble check should only be made when there are clear stakes for the character regarding whether or not they will overcome their trouble. If there be no significant consequences for giving in to the trouble, then no trouble check should be rolled. We'll skip the example right now. So it looks like the example is going to be the last thing I come back in and write. If you succeed at a trouble check, your character acts counter to that part of their nature, successfully accomplishes the action in spite of the fact no one expected to, and the character gains 2 courage points. If you fail, you must introduce a headache into the game. Lynn says, too bad you're not publishing in German. You could just cobble together a new Franken word for the occasion. Yes, I could. Doc Flamingo says, I think giving a benefit for overcoming a trouble is better than a blanket saying that things should go well for them. Well, they do. Their immediate mechanical benefit is that they gain 2 courage points. So there is an immediate benefit. That way to conclude the game comes from low stakes. This is an adaptation of the low stakes RPG, by the way, for anyone who is coming in. Let's go down and look at concluding the story. So this is how we conclude the story. So we have this in context. Oh, look, Jester Sky is here. He plays Dave. Hey, man. Oh, Jester says, I think the keyword try relieves some of the stress on positive. I don't think it's a bad choice. Then again, suitable isn't either. Yeah, because I've got ensure. During the game is one way. Why don't we just say is one way for the game, for the story to end well for your character. That way we don't have this ensure in here. Trouble checks succeeding in a trouble check during the game is one way for the story to end well for your character. Players should try to craft a storyline that ends on a positive note for any character who passed a trouble check. And then we can say concluding the story. So concluding the story. As the game progresses, there will come a point where the storyline seems near its resolution, signaling the game's impending conclusion. When this moment arrives, the player possessing sway may choose to initiate the conclusion of the story. He or she declares this to other players. However, before the scene concludes, another player has the opportunity to attempt to gain sway in appropriately dramatic However, before the scene concludes, another player has the opportunity to attempt to gain sway in an appropriately dramatic narrative act involving one of his or her sway skills. The players should mutually agree on which character should attempt this last-ditch effort to wrest sway from the current character. The challenger must make a sway skill check and is free to spend courage points if he or she has any available. The player with sway may also extend Oh, hey, regular Jeff. Good to see you. It's been a while. Good to see you this morning, regular Jeff. I'm glad you're not. I'm glad you're not an abnormal Jeff, or maybe with the cultists, that being an abnormal Jeff would would go along with that. But good to see you. Or irregular Jeff, right? Irregular Jeff, abnormal Jeff. The challenger must make a sway skill check and is free to spend courage points if he or she has any available. The player with sway must also expend courage to counter each point spent by the challenger. Every point of courage spent by the current sway holder cancels out one spent by the challenger, although the challenger must always roll at least one die. The story will move to its conclusion regardless of the outcome of the final check, but the way it concludes will change. Players should craft a finale where things ultimately work out well for the character holding sway and those who successfully passed checks involving one of their troubles at any time during the game. The other characters face a less favorable conclusion marked by embarrassment, failure, or some other adverse outcome. So that's an adaptation of the way that low stakes ends. Players should craft a finale where things ultimately work out well for the character holding sway and those who successfully pass checks involving one of their troubles at any time during the game. So you can either have sway when the game concludes or have passed a trouble. And if not, then you're probably going to face a less favorable conclusion marked by embarrassment, failure, or some other adverse conditions. So we could also extend this. We could say all players should have agency in determining the conclusion, in determining the final outcome of their characters. But the sway holder and those that pass trouble checks should be allowed to have to craft an ending that is especially suitable, especially acceptable. This all players should have agency in determining the final outcome for their characters, but the sway holder and those who pass trouble checks should be allowed to craft an ending that's especially acceptable to the player's characters. How about that? Okay, checks. Let's go back. Checks we covered on checks. That section. We just worked on trouble checks. So examples are probably going to be the last thing I've got to come back in here and do. Sway checks. Okay, so let's go to sway checks. Sway checks. Sway checks are made when a player character wants to use one of his or her special sway skills to get a leg up on the other cultists. Only one player can attempt a sway skill check in a scene. To be eligible to make a sway check, the character must undertake a narrative action associated with that skill that would garner favorable attention from others or earn their respect, even if only temporarily. Sway skills do not necessarily have to be used against the other player characters. Using them to solve a situation with non-player characters in a way that the cultists take note of also works. The lead has priority in making the scene's sway skill check. If he or she declines or is unable to make one due to constraints of the narrative, or if the lead already has sway, the other players may mutually agree on another player to attempt the check. The scene moderator, however, should only attempt a sway check if no other character is able to. Okay, we're going to use an example here. We'll use Rob as our example here as the critics, but we'll write that at the end. If you succeed at a sway skill check, your character gains sway among the cultists. The character who previously had sway loses it. If you fail, you must introduce a headache into the game. Headaches. A headache represents a fresh challenge, setback, or hurdle that adds complexity to the story for individual characters or the entire group of cultists. Players have the freedom to introduce complications into the game whenever they choose, but are obligated to do so when a check fails. The specifics of the headache is left to the discretion of the player, although they may seek suggestions from fellow players if desired. The range of potential headaches is bound only by the player's creativity, although it's generally advisable for the headache to start small and escalate in significance as the game unfolds. For ideas on potential headaches, players can refer to the headaches table located at the end of this book, which we've got to look at. We haven't got to look at that yet. Asides. Let's see. An aside is a moment where your character addresses an imaginary audience, providing additional insight into the ongoing narrative. Optionally, these scenes may manifest as inner monologues or soliloquies. When playing out an aside, your character may reveal previously undisclosed information, hint at future events, or playfully mock themselves and others. Asides are intended to inject unpredictability into the story, challenging you and your fellow players to adapt. That's kind of weird. Do I talk about you in second person elsewhere? I try not to do that. A lot of RPGs do that. Like, you should roll. I typically don't. So that one kind of got snuck in there by saying, hey, you should roll. You should do this. I typically talk in the third person. I don't typically challenging. It's probably okay, especially for this style of RPG, challenging players to adapt. Yeah. To playfully was probably out of place because I typically don't do that. Oh, am I? Oh, nope. That's kind of the kind of stuff I need. Let's see. How do I edit that? Okay, right here. A role playing. Yep, I am. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Fix the ticker. So now people know what we're doing. Thank you, James. James says, I avoid the word you when writing instructions too. A lot of role-playing games do talk in the second person. But I don't. If there was ever one to actually use the word you in, this kind of casual game probably would be it. But like I said, I guess I generally don't. So I glad I caught that one. During any scene involving your character, you have the option to interrupt the transition to an aside. Each character has 3 types of asides they may enact during the game, which are 1, uncover a hidden truth, 2, hint at future events, or 2, tease or jest at a character's expense. Check off the aside type to enact. Check off the aside type. Check off the aside type on your character sheet and proceed with your revelation. If the aside results in adversity for your character, describe their failure or suffering and possibly new complications to deal with as a result. Your character gains 2 points of courage. If the aside adversely affects another character, introduce an applicable headache into the scene. The character making the aside gains 1 point of courage. Hidden truths. Let's say hidden truths revealed. Players, this might go without saying, but players should incorporate revealed truths and foreshadowed events into the narrative. These allow the players, the player making an aside the opportunity to inject or to have more control over the narrative, making the aside to have more control over the narrative. or to take control, to take a bit of control. Okay, once the aside concludes, resume the ongoing scene and continue gameplay. Each player may enact only one of each type of aside during the game. In games with numerous players or with shorter story durations, all players may not be able to enact all three of their asides. Okay, concluding the story. We already looked at that. Playing with a game master, an optional rule. Even though the Cultists RPG is designed to be played without a game master, some groups may be more comfortable with having a player adjudicate the game in the style of a more traditional role-playing game. The Cultists RPG can accommodate this style of play with minimal revision to the rules. Instead of having players rotate into the role of the scene moderator, the players may have one person adopt the role for the entire game. Rather than having a player character, the scene moderator role plays the extras and NPCs in the scene and takes on a greater role in adjudicating the success or failure of the character's actions and what the result is. The scene moderator also determines when making a check is necessary. Whenever it's time to consult the beat sheet, the scene moderator can roll for the scene or choose the next scene that makes the most logical or comedic sense for the story. Now, actually, now that we've talked more about the lead of the scene, I'm not sure if we should do that or not. Because if we have a game master here, the scene moderator can roll the scene or choose the next scene that makes the most logical or comedic sense for the story. We should say the lead player, however, should still be given the option to craft important details of the scene, so he or she can set his or her character up for sway checks. Some people may want to be permanent scene moderators because they have a vision for an entirely new story or situation for the players to engage with. That can be an excellent way to play. However, game masters shouldn't spend too long prepping for a game of the Cultist RPG. Games are intended to be focused on how characters respond to their initial ridiculous situation, with further scenes being highly driven by the actions their characters take in response. Resist the urge to railroad the players with a predetermined story arc. Let the game go where the hijinks takes it. Okay. I probably need to do just like one final pass through here, and then once that's done, once the other things are written, write the examples. And that, I think we're just about done now with all of the rules. The final section is playing a campaign, which I think we were looking at the very last moments of last week's live stream. Let's see. Playing a campaign. The Cultist RPG is often played as a one-off or one-shot game with players coming together for a single session, selecting characters, and then playing out a standalone narrative arc. However, some groups may want to play the same character over the course of several games. This will allow them to not only more deeply develop their characters, but also weave a longer story, much in the same way multiple episodes of a web series can form a longer story arc. The Cultist RPG does not have a method to level up or advance a character like some other RPGs, but it does have a mechanism for character change because the same character can be played with different narrative roles. For instance, arguably, Rob plays multiple different narrative roles during the Cultist, including the Grump, the Critic, the Fanatic, but often a single episode focuses on only one of these roles. Likewise, Acantha is both the Metachromism and the Caretaker. Ben begins as the novitiate, but becomes a true believer. Therefore, players are free to keep the same character for a future session, but switch up which narrative role they play based on the changing situations in the story. They retain their cult affiliation unless that I think we were adjusting this section as we wrapped up last time, unless that has changed for some reason too. But select new troubles and sway skills from the list of the new narrative role. Switching narrative roles may often be driven by the events in a previous game session. A character might originally show up as a skeptical LARPer, but then have a family crisis that causes him to lean further into the cult and become a novitiate, then be tempted back to the mundane world, playing the role of the conflicted, and then finally having a personal religious experience that causes him to become a fanatic. Even comedic stories can address serious themes and explore serious topics. In fact, humor is often a great way to explore topics that one might not want to address more directly. The cultists involve themes of belonging, grieving, the loss of a friend, and personal growth. Players who wish to explore such topics may find that embracing character change across play sessions is an important tool. I love that. So there may be a few typo edits to be done. So I'll read back through it. I often have the computer, turn on its computer voice and read it back to me. So I will sit here and listen to the computer read it back to me after the stream. But I think that is the entire instructions. Now, creating a character is next. But as far as the how to play, let's see. I think that's it. I think not including the front matter and not including the section on on creating a character. That is 6,263 words, which is a lot more than I was expecting this to be. Be careful about what projects you undertake because they all spiral out of control. Okay. So, final read through and write the examples. And I think all of those 6,263 words are done. And you guys have been a huge part of that. Of course, the character sheet will have to be added in. But that's a layout thing. All right. Okay. Let's be sure that we like the way these troubles are written. Okay? Because we're headed to character creation. Let's be sure we like how the troubles are written. Make sure we like how everything is written here. But the troubles, I know that's come up so many times here. Character creation. Every player will need a character to play. Players are free to choose any of the pre-generated characters in the back of this book, which include many of the characters in the Cultist web series. However, players may also create their own characters to play using the following steps. 1. Select a narrative role. In the Cultist RPG, the most important thing about a character is the narrative role they play in the group and in the story. Generally, groups should only include one character of a particular narrative role. That's capitalized narrative role here because it's capitalized everywhere else. This gives each player a definable niche to fill when creating the story. Narrative roles in the Cultist RPG include, now is this correct? Let me look. The caretaker, I was trying to write these in alphabetical order. So, okay, the caretaker, the conflicted comes next, the critic, the dandy, the grouch, the caretaker, the conflicted, the critic, ABCD, the dandy, DE. Oh, this is not this. Okay. This is why you check. This is why you check. The caretaker, the conflicted, the critic, the dandy, the elder goth, the fanatic, the grouch, the lackey, the larper, the maverick, the metachromism, the novitiate, and the provocateur. Okay, so there we go. That should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That's 13. There we go. So you select your narrative role. Then, 2, select your cult. Perhaps the most interesting thing about playing the Cultist RPG is being a member of one of the many Lovecraftian cults. Players are free to combine their narrative role with membership in whatever cult they choose. Players might all choose to be part of the same cult or might choose to be from a variety of different cults, like in the Cultist web series. 3. Review your character's possible special abilities. Each cult has a variety of special abilities that allow some of their uniqueness to have a mechanical impact on the game and help drive the narrative. Players should review what abilities being a member of their cult could grant them. Players do not define a special ability. This is new here. Players should review what abilities being a member of their cult could grant them. Players should not, we'll say should not. You get to pick your ability when it comes up narratively. Players should not define a special ability for their character at the start of the game, but rather wait to choose what special ability their character has until the opportunity to use one comes up in play. Once chosen, that special power may not be changed for the remainder of the game, but it may be used in multiple scenes wherever narratively appropriate. If players are playing the same characters in a game, in a campaign, playing a campaign, clear the character's special ability selection at the start of each game. 4. Select 3 troubles. Each narrative role has a variety of possible troubles. Troubles indicate a default. So this is what troubles are. So I want to pay close attention to this when we look at what the character's troubles are and see if we've got this right. Select 3 troubles. Each narrative role has a variety of possible troubles. Troubles indicate, let's say explicitly, troubles do 2 major things. Have 2 major functions in the game. First, troubles indicate a default state of the character's life that makes things difficult for them. Let's stop right this. Let's take this out right here. This is an important paragraph. First, troubles indicate let's capitalize troubles, a default state of the character's life that makes things difficult for them. For instance, the caretaker has the trouble, assert yourself in an interpersonal conflict. This means the caretaker is usually passive and does not stand up for himself. However, when narratively appropriate, the characters may make a trouble check to try to overcome that character trait. We're going to have a lot of page references to put in once we go to layout. To try to overcome that character trait, players should choose 3 of these and indicate them on their character sheet. At the start of the game, and indicate them on their character sheet. Players are also free to come up with their own trouble and write it in the blank line on their character sheet. Okay, so that is I'm going to read that one more time through here. Lynn says, I like the Heisenberg nature of the special abilities. They have no defined value until they're observed. I like that too. I like that too, especially in this style of game, that here are your abilities. You're going to get to use one of them. It's almost like wasn't there some game that did that with languages or something some role-playing game that did that with languages? I kind of like that. I see that from time to time in different games. And of course, part of me in the beginning, or more than a part of me, I guess, was resistant to that kind of thing because I'm like, how can your character not be defined? Right. Yes, it's that we are right. It's a fate-like element added here. Like when fate has that. They're like, what? I'm not supposed to define my character until I start playing. I think this has to do with the sides of the gamist rules versus the more simulationist style. Like we're talking about simulating the world. Like if this character exists in the world, then it should be defined when it goes and undertakes some, it should have defined characteristics when it goes and undertakes this adventure. But in this kind of situation, what you're doing from the game perspective is actually ensuring that the character, that the player gets to use their special ability. Like if they're supposed to have a special ability, that needs to come up and play, because it seems like the worst situation would be like, at the beginning of the game, I got to choose 1 to 3 here. What's my special ability going to be? This one sounds fun. And then 3 scenes into the game, you're like, oh, this would be the perfect narrative opportunity for me to use this other special power, but I didn't check it, so I can't. And then your other special power might not even come up during play. So I do like this. Like, you get one, but when it comes up narrative, you're ensuring that the player can actually use it. So I'm like that. Yeah, it's like Lynn says, it's like you discover your character as you go rather than building it at the outset. Yes. Because, I mean, if you were writing a script, that's kind of what you would do, right? I mean, you would be you know, you wouldn't if you were writing a script, you wouldn't predefine everything the character can do. You know, and now we can only do this, even if the story is going in this direction. You know, you'd have that discovery as well. Oh, hey, John. Damn, haven't caught the morning grind in months. Well, I'm glad you're here today. I haven't been doing daily morning grinds because I've been working. But maybe I've just got to force myself to do them earlier. I talk about that every time. We will see. But I can't do that right now because every time I wake up early, what I've been doing is working on this story and getting us ready for this Kickstarter. But hey, John, hey, it has been a long time since I've seen you. So here's to you, John. Okay, so select 3 troubles. Each narrative role has a variety of possible troubles. Troubles have 2 major functions in the game. First, troubles indicate a default state of the character's life that makes things difficult for them. For instance, the caretaker has the trouble assert yourself in an interpersonal conflict. This means the caretaker is usually passive and does not stand up for himself. Secondly, however, I need to put the second. Secondly, however, the troubles define when trouble checks must be made to act counter to this default state of their lives. When let's just do that. When narratively appropriate, the character may make a trouble check to try to overcome their trouble. Players should choose 3 of these at the start of the game and indicate them on their character sheet. Players are also free to come up with their own trouble and write it on the blank line on their character sheet. I also think we should make a note about the end of the game here. Hey, Sams. Here's to you. Welcome. Okay. How about separating that? Each narrative role has a variety of possible troubles. Troubles have 2 major functions in the game. First, troubles indicate a default state of their character's life that makes things difficult for them. For instance, the caretaker has the trouble assert yourself in an interpersonal conflict. This means the caretaker is usually passive and does not stand up for himself. Secondly, the troubles define when trouble checks must be made to act counter to the default state of their lives. Characters who pass a trouble check during the game may have a better outcome for their character at the story's conclusion. More references. I wonder, I probably use more references. Do we have RPGs with more like, man, if we do something like Faded Edge, they're going to be all over the place. References per 1,000 words or something. I'm probably very high. I'm very high on. This is called the Cult C concluding the story. But I think it helps I think rulebook should like this. If this comes up and I need to go someplace else, then the rulebook needs to tell me. Okay, select 3 sway skills. Sway skills are things the character is particularly good at and may allow them to gain the upper hand over the other cultists. Possible sway skills are determined by the character's narrative role. Players should select 3 of the possible sway skills before the game begins. We'll specify that because we've got some things you do during the game. Before the game begins, players should select 3 of the possible sway skills and indicate them on their character sheet. Players are also free to create their own sway skill and list it on the blank line, but if a player chooses to create their own, it should be broadly applicable to a variety of situations. Don't make it too narrow. 6, indicate the character has 1 courage point. This can be done by taking a courage token if the players are using them or by marking it on the character sheet. 7, name your character. 8, define any other relevant details. The player may define anything else they feel is important about their character, including their appearance, clothing, speech patterns, and quirks. All right. Does that make sense? So what do you think about... I'm going to have to insert the cults here too. So our cults... I don't want to put that in yet because I want to have the suggested special abilities there. We're getting so close. We're getting so close. We're not quite there yet, but we are getting so close. Okay. I think we're inconsistent with our... okay, so I started to put that here. So like the dandy, choose 1. So our cults are Azathoth, Cthulhu, Dagon, Nyarlathotep, Shub, and Yog-Sothoth. I did not know there was a Mario RPG, but I guess it makes sense. Okay, because so the dandy here, the trouble is show humility. Do I need to specify that further? I mean, we have said on troubles that, okay, so the trouble is show humility. Now, I feel like, I don't know. How are we feeling about this? Let's go back to the top here. I mean, because these are generally short bullet points here, and because I'm hesitating to write a paragraph for each trouble. Not only would Brianna kill me from the layout perspective, because I'm trying to keep this is the character sheet. So the caretaker, this is what needs to go on the character sheet. You'll get the character name. You'll select the tick off which culture part of, which will also have a place to tick off some special abilities. You will check off which troubles you want and which sway skills you want, and your opportunity to check off the asides. And if you don't have physical tokens for courage and sway, you can put that right here. But hopefully you're using the physical tokens because, hey, Brianna made those and they look amazing. But, so I'm tempted. I don't want to write an entire paragraph for these troubles. And I don't want to put them in some other place. I mean, if it was a more complicated RPG, then, the narrative role for the caretaker could have a lot more information in the rule book and then just have, some bullet points on the character sheet. But this is both. This is both. This is where you read all of this, and it's the character sheet. Well, they call her the cult of Shub in the Cultists. Like, what are we doing? Are we worshiping Shub? So Shub is the short version. Like, thank you, Mama Shub. That shirt. Okay, the caretaker. You frequently take charge of critical tasks and see to the well-being of your fellow cultists. However, your dedication to supporting those others leads you to overlook your own aspirations and desires, often resulting in setbacks. Okay, so this says, so if you had just read this thing on troubles, each narrative role has a variety of possible troubles. Troubles have two major functions in the game. First, troubles indicate a default state of the character's life that makes things difficult for them. For instance, the caretaker has the trouble assert yourself in an interpersonal conflict. This means the caretaker is usually passive and does not stand up for himself. Secondly, the troubles troubles define when trouble checks should be made to act counter to their default state of their lives. How about the default state of their lives? When narratively appropriate, the character may make a trouble check to try to overcome their trouble. Characters who pass the trouble check during the game have a better outcome for this character at the story's conclusion. Okay. If you just read that and then you read troubles, prioritize self-care. Does that make sense? Does it? I'm guessing what I'm asking here is, does it make more sense for that to be in reverse? Role 2, prioritize self-care. Okay, so wait, what are our two options? Okay, one option, I'll put them both on the screen. Okay, this is what I'm thinking of right now. I got one option is just to write prioritize self-care there. The other option, role 2, prioritize self-care. I'm trying. I don't want to be too wordy here, but we could have role 2 on each one. That would make it very explicit. Role to prioritize self-care. Okay. You are overly attentive to the needs of others, often to the neglect of yourself. Or no, just to the neglect of yourself. Role to prioritize self-care. Now that does emphasize the two things the trouble is supposed to do, because there are two sentences. The first one tells you the default situation. The other one tells you role 2, what you're supposed to do. How do you feel about this? Which one? In fact, let's do a poll. I'll do a poll on YouTube. Let's see. Okay. We got this is option number 1 right here. Which one do you think is actually better as far as understanding here? Let's how do I do this? Start a poll. What format should the troubles be in? Option 1. Option 2. Okay, I'm on. This is a poll going out to the Heath's Geekverse channel. So if you're there, we got option 1 and option 2. Because I know there was a lot of controversy regarding what the troubles were. And what their meaning is. I like the dual part of the troubles. So if we were to do that, address a personal challenge. Your attention is always on the problems, on solving the problems roll 2. Oh, no. Here's another kind of way to go here. So address a person. Your attention is always on solving the problems of others. Roll 2. Confront your own problems head on. So option 1, it just says address a personal challenge. 2, your attention is always on this. I'm using you here because this is a character sheet. This isn't rules instruction, but this is specifically about the character sheet because it would be odd here to say the caretaker's attention is always on. Like this is you. This is you because it's your character sheet. Your attention is always on solving the problems of others. Roll to confront your own problems head on. So that would be like a style 1 option, and this would be a style 2 option. Let's see. All right, let's see what people are saying here. I had to send a message over here. All right. At the moment, we need more people to pick a choice in the survey. Yes, we do. Of course, not everybody who's watching is actually on the Heath's Geekverse channel because this is a cultist related. Yeah, we have 3 votes, but we got a lot of people watching. How many people do we have watching at the moment? We have 27 people watching at the moment, but we're going out on different channels here. So not all of them may be on the Heath's Geekverse YouTube channel. I'm going out on 2 different YouTube channels. I'm going on the Heath's Geekverse channel because that's typically where the morning grind is hosted. But when I'm doing something cultist related, I stream out on the Cultists YouTube channel as well. And I got the Cultists. I don't know how many people are actually watching on that. Okay, we have 5 votes. We got 5 votes. Okay, we got option 1 currently at 60%, option 2 at 40%. Oh, people like option 1. People are liking option 1. Okay, now if people like option 1, if we're going to have this roll 2, I could put that here. Roll a trouble check 2. Oh, this could be a good way to go. If people like the shorter one, we could say roll a trouble check 2, prioritize self-care. Does that do it? Regular Jeff's. Okay, thank you. Pondering for a moment. That's good. That's good. So that's another option to say. We could just say on the character sheet, troubles, choose 3, roll a trouble check 2, prioritize self-care. And we're basically it's like we're completing the sentence here. Roll a trouble check to prioritize self-care. Oh, Mike says that helps. See, because I kind of like this, but it is a lot. It's a lot to have there on the character sheet. And I don't want to put it in 2 places. But if this is always phrased as completing the sentence, roll a trouble check 2, prioritize self-care, that is implying that you are overly attentive to the needs of others. Okay, I like that. So Mike says the roll a trouble check 2 part helps frame things I think, but allows for interpretations. Yes, because I think that was part of the trouble. I mean, this when we were writing these out, I think also was it RPG Exile or was it Anon? It might have been Anon who was saying that it was not clear about what we were trying to do with the trouble checks. So I think we have clarified that with this section on trouble checks right here. I think that it clarifies that. What your default state is, and then roll a trouble check. And come to think of it, it makes sense on the character sheet. There would be like roll a trouble check 2. Okay, trouble check. This should be capital. Roll a trouble check 2. I'm liking this. I'm liking this. Okay, so it ended up being 60-40, right? Over on the Heath's Geekverse YouTube channel. And people tended to like the number 1 by a small margin. It's basically 50-50. But I think this is a good way to go. Roll a trouble check 2. Okay, we don't need 1 anymore. That was option 1. Prioritize self-care. Address a personal challenge. Because I want you to be able to, I don't want you to have to read a novel on your character sheet here. Roll a trouble check to assert yourself in an interpersonal conflict. Oh, Mike says I would have voted for number 1 if the roll 2 part was there. Okay, I think we've come up with a good with the way to go. Roll a trouble check 2, confront or discipline someone. Okay, so then like the conflicted. Roll a trouble check to resist the temptations of the mundane world. Place the cult above your own needs. Prioritize the cult over your mundane. I also like this is more like a sentence. Over your mundane interests and friends. So actually, this is the way that requires the least bit of rephrasing. Let's go down to let's take a look. Let's the Elder Goth. We created that one kind of whole cloth. So this would be troubles. Choose 3. Roll a trouble check to effectively use technology. Blend into the background. This is working. I think this is working. Appear non-threatening to people in the mundane world. I think we have solved the problem of the troubles. Or acknowledge your weakness or vulnerability. Okay. Well, all right. So that will take some rewriting here, but not a lot. I like that. Okay. That we're closer than I thought we were. I was afraid there was like, oh my God. Okay. So actually we might have to really rewrite these troubles. So it looks like not. As long as they fit this right here, this formula, roll a trouble check 2, short and sweet is better. Maybe I should have the same thing here with sway skills. Like choose 3 sway skills. Attempt to impress your fellow cultists by assisting someone to resolve a dilemma. Demonstrating your worth to another. Compliment someone with specificity. Attempt to you have to say attempt. Like impress your fellow cultists by. Now, what do I say up here? Roll a trouble check to sway skills. No, I guess it should be attempt because you're making attempt because it's rolling. Attempt to impress your fellow cultists by, or attempt to get. No, it should be gain sway. Attempt to gain sway by assisting someone, or no, by resolving assist someone by resolving their dilemma. Okay, I like this. I like this. I think this is much more clear. Mike says, does the sway require a roll to type message to frame the fictional tree? So I'm thinking so. That's what I was just thinking. I was thinking so. Yeah, okay, yep. We just thought of it at the same time. So it's probably best if we get some parallel framing between troubles and sway skills. Attempt to gain sway by assisting someone by resolving their dilemma. Demonstrate. So we talked about whether or not these were ing. We went back and forth on this, but now that we have a sentence, we know like what's the phraseology. Does it need to be an ing verb or not? Demonstrate your worth to another. Compliment. Gain sway by complimenting someone with specificity. Attempt to gain sway by mentoring someone in a new skill. I think we've resolved a major problem here. Okay, so I like that. So that means I need to, as I'm working through here, I need to rework these because I need to use this in order to create the characters. So what's left? I'm gonna have to go here in just a moment here. But we're creating a character. So what's down here? There's still a lot, but character creation. Okay, we're just talking about that. And it looks like we basically have the characters. I'm going to read them through, but I need to reformat this to our troubles and sway skills new format. I like that. But we basically created all of those on previous live streams. So all of those are the narrative roles. Eldergoth, the fanatic, the grouch, the lackey, the larper, the maverick, the metachromism, the novitiate, the provocateur. Okay, then the cults. Okay, we need some additional verbiage here under the cults. We had worked on the verbiage for the cult of Azathoth. And then we're going to work on some powers for them. And so we were starting cult. We got ideas for powers. That's still a big thing. The cult of Nyarlathotep, the cult of Shub. I may just end up telling Brianna that she can use pull quotes as like for spacer as well. The cult of Nyarlathotep, the cult of Shub, the cult of Yog-Sothoth. We're going to have some kind of sidebar text here about, can you play a cultist of the Yellow King? Can I play a non-cultist? These are this seems like a lot. These are the pre-generated characters. The beat sheets. This is what I was working on the other night. The beat sheets. So I guess we won't go into that. But I, as you can see, I have been doing a lot of work on the beat sheets and then trying to set up beat sheets too, like the stolen ritual, the crisis, the curveball, and then the scenes. Each beat sheet has a crisis that starts the story, some kind of curveball that goes, and then some type of scene as well. Some scene list as well. So all of those, we got 7 different beat sheets. This was a big deal. This was a big deal. Prophecy puzzle. So I guess what is that how you spell puzzle? Yeah. But I'm not 100% comfortable with all of these right now anyway. I've got to go through all of these because I noticed that sometimes the curveball, which is supposed to be an additional complication, would kind of duplicate the crisis, and I have to be sure that the curveball can go with every possible crisis, right? Because you got to roll on those together. Magical mishap, the forbidden. Are these in alphabetical order? No, they need to be. So the forbidden needs to be first. The next one is MNOP. Okay, so they would be, the beat sheets would be the forbidden. One of the cultists is involved in a forbidden relationship or activity that jeopardizes the group's secrecy and plans. The cult must navigate the complications arising from this taboo, balancing loyalty with their objectives. Forbidden, magical mishap. A spell or ritual has gone awry, leading to unintended and often chaotic consequences. Mundane intrusion. Everyday life interrupts the cult's operations in an inconvenient or humorous way. We know it's going to be a humorous way, such as bureaucratic requirement, whatever. Prophecy puzzle. Somebody thinks they've got a prophecy coming in. Unwanted attention. The cult has attracted the attention of someone who could expose or hinder their activities. Spell component shortage. And then stolen item. So those are our beat sheets. We got to go through those. I still have a table of headaches here. So I was also working on a table of headaches. Roll a D66 so that you've got some suggestions for that. And then I was also writing out some development notes so that we can talk about what we have done here. And because I think we have dramatically expanded the low stakes role playing game and expanded the idea of a comedy role playing game. Let's see what else we got here. What are my feelings on proper cult names? Well, I mean, I like that idea, but how do they refer to them in the cultists? He just said, "I'm a member of the Esoteric Order of Dagon, the Cult of Yogg-Sothoth." Those names don't come up with. To me, that sounds like those names don't come up in the cultists. They tend to be very God-focused in the cultists. That sounds like something we should do for Unspeakable Cults, because there can be multiple cults of Nyarlathotep, for instance, and one of them is the Cult of Crawling Chaos. And then, like, yeah, you've got both Yogg-Sothoth here. So, like, the Cult of the Key and the Cult of the Gate could be both the Yogg-Sothoth focused. I like that idea, but I think I would use that for a more serious RPG. Here, I think we just go with the names of the gods. All right. Well, I've got to get out of here, man. I feel like we are getting close. We're getting close. And I really, actually, all I want to do is sit here this afternoon and work on this in order to push us through to the end, because we're getting so close. We are getting so close. I've got to finish these beat sheets, because some of those examples in the beginning, like that example when you're the lead character and you're trying to roll, I got to have at least one beat sheet finished in order to use as an example. I guess all I have to have is one finished in order to write that example. And then I have to write a few other examples, because I want this done so that I can get this out in some type of review beta version. And I can also want to send this out to other people as well. So Brianna's already made the cover for the beta version here. All right. I am out of here. Everybody, have a wonderful day. Go forth, be creative, be constructive, and grind on. Thank you so much for being here. This was a huge help once again today. Hope you enjoyed it. Later, everybody.